How does the tech work? If you've seen the footage, you already know. Objects floating silently, without wings or rotors, accelerating from 0 to thousands of miles an hour in a split second, performing 90-degree turns at hypersonic speeds, operating in the air and underwater, seamlessly, defying gravity, inertia, and even the sound barrier, disappearing and reappearing in ways no known material or propulsion system allows. This isn't speculation, it's been documented. The US Navy's Gimbal, GoFast, and FLIR-1 videos, radar logs, pilot testimonies, even congressional hearings. Reports from all over the world, and yet, no one can explain how it works. Physics, as we understand it, can account for movement without propulsion, flight without lift, turns without inertia, presence without mass, massive speeds without friction, transmedium, air, water, and space, cloaking. Why? Because our understanding of physics is still incomplete. We've split the atom, we've mapped the genome, but we still can't unify the large with the small, relativity with quantum mechanics. We are a civilization using Flint tools in a world of quantum infrastructure. They aren't gods, not angels, not demons. They're engineers.
You are not allowed to know any of this. My mind was hacked by aliens.
This is the truth, and it changes
everything.
Mind hacked. The forces required to move UAP the way they do pushes the limits in the bonds of matter. No person could possibly be inside one of these observable objects and survive. Nature is delicate and soft. It cannot withstand these forces. So how is this possible? What we're observing is a combination of AI and neural interface technology. Systems that respond directly to thought, much like the chip in my face. They integrate with the computer seamlessly, allowing a perfect assimilation into the real world through robotics. UAP are just robots without wings. They can be driven by the AI or an EBE, both are done. Though an EBE may move his consciousness to a UAP if the delicacy of the situation dictates. We already see the primitive versions of this in our own technology. We are beta testing personal androids, brain-computer interfaces used in prosthetics, neural decoding experiments that convert brainwaves to text. Now project that forward 10,000 years. Their craft, their systems, their communication tools, everything is bidirectionally linked to consciousness itself. They can remote view into any object. The limit of distance to this is the constraint of the speed of light and the reaction time of the brain, a delay that is induced through the distance-time relationship. The AI can close this gap to a certain distance, but it can only fill a limited delay. If the delay gets too large, the computer just takes over. This isn't telepathy. It's a data stream carried through light in ways we have not yet discovered possible. It's not magic, it's just more advanced neuroscience. We are struggling with wireless computer-brain integration, but that limit is caused by our lack of understanding, relative to the model of the atom and light behavior. The solution to this is just around the corner. I have the answers. Their vehicles break every rule of aerodynamics. No lift, no sonic boom, no friction, sound, or exhaust. They accelerate instantly. They stop and turn just as fast. So what's the explanation? Their model of the atom is complete. They control gravity. Gravity is a function of the atom. Once you've mastered fusion, you understand the atom. This complete model of the atom allows for gravity to be scalable atomically. And if you can control gravity, you can control mass, because mass is not a constant. It's a variable. A property we've always treated as fixed, but isn't. People in space have less weight. This weight-mass ratio connection is instinctual. We have forced the equations to work in space. We have convoluted theories of gravity, like gravity wells, which explain behavior and predict motion with almost perfect accuracy, but do not account for the why. Weight and mass are not the same thing, though we often treat them the same. We see it, we feel it. Like a dolphin checking his fin underwater to see if it's wet. Weight is a function of Earth's gravity, which is why on the moon, you weigh less. To this day, mainstream academia cannot explain the root of gravity. There is no graviton. We calculate change of motion assuming mass doesn't change, because naturally it doesn't. We think of mass as being matter, physical objects, but matter is not real. Not the way you're holding on to it. E equals mc squared. Everything is light. Matter is just a hallucination the brain creates to allow your consciousness to survive in its environment. Force equals mass times acceleration. If we rearrange the equation, mass equals force divided by acceleration. If everything is just light, then mass is just a function of the forces created at the atomic level. If you can change these forces, you can change the mass or the weight of an object relative to its surrounding environment. They manipulate the force acting on an object by changing the amount of gravity matter creates. They can make matter heavier or lighter relative to its surrounding space. Therefore, the UAP weighs less relative to Earth than the surrounding air or water. This makes it float in space, kind of like orbiting, where the forces are balanced, but no need for the centripetal force. Just by changing the mass of the atoms in part of the object and by changing the center of gravity in that object. So if acceleration equals force divided by mass, then a constant force will generate an increase in acceleration with a decreasing relative mass. They redefine mass in real time, and once you can do that, inertia collapses as a barrier. At the quantum level, inertia becomes a field effect, a relationship between energy and environment, not just stored momentum. Which means, if they can manipulate gravity, then they can control mass, and with it, inertia, acceleration, and motion itself. They don't fly, they fall intelligently through gravitational distortion. If gravity acts in all directions, how do they steer their ships? That's the right question, and the answer isn't simple, because it requires admitting something we rarely confront. Our model of the atom is incomplete. We've built our physics on a framework that fits the natural environment. It got us into orbit. It let us split the atom. It runs our simulations. It accurately explains the natural world. It does not, however, let us manipulate it the same way the EBEs do. Our mathematical models predict with amazing accuracy, and I am not disputing that. But it is not the full picture. This change to the atomic model is not an or function, it's an and function. Once you accept that our model does not explain gravity, once you embrace this new atomic model, one that includes gravity as a local, tunable field, not just a distinct cosmic effect, then suddenly everything begins to make sense. In that model, the oil drop experiment becomes a measurement of gravity induced by the Earth and the Sun, not gravity itself. The double-slit experiment, which proves light is a wave, is a wrinkle in our theories, forcing Schrödinger to have a multidimensional cat. The gold foil experiment becomes a misunderstanding of a scale too small to verify through direct observation, and too heavily dependent on assumptions. Assumptions that a proton has been isolated, which is impossible given the new model of the atom. You cannot have it both ways. These experiments form the bedrock of modern atomic theory and quantum physics, but they are not sacred. Our physics is very good at describing and predicting, but we have not yet commanded and control it, not like the EBE do. Einstein is famous for saying the definition of insanity is to perform the same experiment over and over again and expect a different result. If our science is missing gravity and we have exhausted math, then we are doing something wrong in the theory. These experiments were curated a century ago, an improvement over the pudding model, but still incomplete. They were good enough to get us through the 20th century, but they can't take us where these beings have already gone. We're not blind because we're stupid, we're blind because we're still working from the wrong assumptions. Until we realize that gravity is local and programmable, we'll never understand how they navigate space like a pilot navigating air. I understand the science, the math, the physics. I can explain it in detail. But I've learned something else too. To understand this is to become a threat. Not to them, but to us. To governments, to institutions. There's an unseen Cold War going on. We're fighting for dominance over Earth. Democracy versus dictatorship. A fight that is pointless, as both systems are riddled with flaws. Neither is worthy of an eternal leadership model. True intelligence does not use 300-year-old primitive leadership models, but one that encompasses communication and inclusion, when where all information is shared and secrets become the problem. AI needs accurate data to be effective, and so do we. We should work towards a system that is flexible and driven through success. A system we cannot even see. My understanding of this science challenges my right to freedom. It makes me a national security risk. Any nation would kill for this opportunity to understand, and they have killed for a lot less. I've tried to share this through the proper channels. I contacted the Canadian Intelligence Service. They hung up on me. If you can control what a person sees, you don't need to hide. If you can control what they remember, you don't need to fight. If you can control their sense of time and space, you can operate in full daylight, without ever being noticed. Not all is as it seems. We often hear reports of craft moving at impossible speeds, jumping from one location to another in ways that defy physics. But here's the question. How do we know it's the same craft at point A and point B? If they can disappear and reappear, what if we're not seeing a single object moving fast, but two separate objects coordinated to appear as one? What if there is more to the story? Both solutions can be true. Sometimes it's maximum acceleration, and others it's an illusion. One ship disappears and another appears at a point some distance away, giving the illusion of teleportation or impossible acceleration. This is where our assumptions betray us. We assume continuity. We assume singularity. We assume our senses are trustworthy. But this is the foundation of magic. Not the supernatural kind, but the art of illusion. With their mastery over light, optics, and neurological interference, they can create any reality they choose. After all, your experience of the universe is nothing more than sensory input, pattern recognition, internal stimulation. Your brain doesn't see light, it interprets data. They intercept that interpretation. They use a blend of advanced optics, real-time visual manipulation, electromagnetic field interference, neural signal hacking, behavioral psychology, and belief-based conditioning to construct the narrative they want you to see. It's not random, it's not sloppy. A lot of work goes into these illusions because they're not just creating a spectacle, they're engineering a message that is consistent. We're in control. We are faster, smarter, superior, untouchable. Domination. It's not just technology, it's psychological warfare, disguised as light. They don't just operate ships, they operate belief. In abduction experiences and close encounters, witnesses consistently report missing time, memory distortion, apparitions shifting shape, physical paralysis without injury, the sensation of being moved without motion. These aren't random hallucinations. They point to something far more advanced: control over matter, time, and human consciousness. And the most plausible explanation? Most of these experiences don't happen in a physical space. They happen in a virtual space, projected, manipulated, and inserted directly into awareness. Their most powerful technology may not be in their ships and the physical world. It may be in their cognitive manipulation systems, sophisticated tools that interfere directly with human perception. We see echoes of this on Earth: military-grade psychotronic weapons, directed energy devices, projects like MKUltra and voice-to-skull or V2K, EEG waveform tracking, transcranial magnetic stimulation or TMS. They're not knocking on doors. They're not breaking into homes. They're inserting experience into consciousness directly. So what does all this mean? It means their systems are real, observable, and consistent with advanced technology that draws clean energy from hydrogen, manipulates gravity instead of air, controls light and heat implicitly, interfaces with brainwaves directly, leans hard on the art of illusion, and edits human experience like data in a simulation. They're not breaking the laws of physics. They're operating with a more complete version of the rulebook. Part engineer, part illusionist. Master of the interface between perception and reality. They don't conquer with force. They redefine the context in which we think, feel, and exist.